I want to welcome the GMs and the wives, the godly men and the warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic women out there. So, how do demons work? Well, first, you have to remember that Satan is their daddy. Okay, they do not belong to God, they belong to Satan. And there is a army of Satan and there is an army of God. Now, this is a spiritual army and this is a spiritual war overall. But we have to recognize that it is primarily spiritual. In the Bible, it says that we battle not by flesh and blood, but by the Spirit, right? So we we are reconciling and manifesting a godly change in our lives each and every day just by following God, and to do so is an act of rebellion against the father of these demonic entities and spirits. You can think about the demonic world or realm, whatever you want to call it, as I think about it as a domain, a spiritual domain. And you can think about it in regards to like a hierarchy, but it's a backwards hierarchy. It's like a flipped hierarchy where God is at the top of the light hierarchy, and all of God's angels and soldiers, etc., are down in this hierarchy. And remember that God gives us authority based off of our own spiritual progression. And then it's completely flipped. So it's a coin that's flipped on the other side, where you can think about it in shamanic terms as the upper world and the lower world. The lower world is considered to be where the darkness is in the spirit world, whereas the upper world is more where the light beings are. So one of the ways that you can recognize somebody that is having Satan as their daddy is they are prone to make you drowsy, either give you a headache, or when you're around them, you just feel more drained. There's a level of distraction that's involved as well. Any kind of triggers or past traumas that you've had may be amplified in their presence, or it almost is as if that this person is trying to test you to see where your limits really are. And then also, of course, there's the 7 deadly sins altogether, but lust primarily is going to be another factor. And a lot of men want to believe that women are not as lustful as men. And the reality is that men are just not as covert about it as women. Women are very much more subliminal and covert. And if they don't get their way, they're going to be much more willing to lie to make it seem like something is that it isn't. Of course, this is simply because women's nature, biologically speaking, their way of warfare was psychological, whereas men's way of warfare was more physical. Men, we are more external beings when it comes to getting stuff done. We have to move things in creation itself, whereas the women are the receivers, right? So they are the ones that are able to multiply things. If it's a good woman, she's going to be able to multiply whatever you bring to the table. If she's not a good woman, she's going to just simply take what you have. But a good woman is able to multiply that. You can think about this symbolically as well in regard to just our biology. Our biology, women produce babies. Men bring the sperm and the swimmers, and women make more with that. But men are the ones that are going to have to give that value. One thing we also have to recognize is that when we are dealing with a demonic entity, how they work through these kinds of characteristics is they're going to try to make you focus on your pain instead of having faith in the righteous path. And sometimes it can be very challenging to not look at your pain because the pain can be so immense. But this is actually a good sign overall, because you are showing God, that you're working through it. You're working through something. And everything is spiritual, right? Everything is spiritual. So for example, there's been a lot of tests for myself recently in regard to spiritual warfare. And I've had to make quick decisions because those decisions are going to impact my life really quickly, really right in real time. And determining how to make those decisions, well, it's almost like the devil himself has put certain obstacles in the way of making these decisions. And so it's forcing me to be more strategic. But the idea also that you must have is to realize that anything that's trying to force you into something is probably of the devil. Anything that brings you into unity with a newfound sense of freedom, that's probably more of a godsend or a blessing of some kind. If somebody makes you feel more free around them, then they're probably not having a demonic entity possess them in some way, shape, or form. And you're going to upset these demons for sure. You're going to upset these demons simply if you're just speaking the truth. Just speaking the truth, you might piss off these demons. And I am somebody that is not even supposed to really be alive today. And it's not necessarily the fact that I don't want to be. It's that I was cast aside by people that I thought were supposed to be there for me. And I was pretty much left to die. That was symbolically and metaphorically, that's what happened. And I was not really by choice, but in a way by choice. It was either to continue being in tyranny and continue being around these demonic possessed people in which I don't find any kind of joy, because these people are thieves of joy. It's just bizarre how they work. You can just be who you are yourself, and all of a sudden you just feel your spirit being drained. It's almost like this suction cup that they have. They just carry this suction cup wherever they go. And any kind of joy that you bring to the table, they just try to suck it away and they just try to take it. You're going to get to a point where if you understand really how these demonic entities work within people too, and you can look into their eyes. The eyes are another good way to look into whether or not somebody's possessed by a demon. Because if you look into their eyes and you can still see light, maybe there's a glint of or a twinkle in their eye that they know that they're just as fallible as anybody else, but they still have that light within them, and somebody you can probably work with. But you cannot work with a demon that has that darkness in the back of their eyes. Or when you look at them, it's just, you kind of get this uneasy feeling. I've had experiences where I've looked into people's eyes and immediately my gut, I just feel something is not right. Something is really, really, really not right. And what do I do in those situations? I if I need to, I set boundaries. Otherwise, I just walk away from the situation and I don't really acknowledge them much ever again. Because I know that I'm dealing with a spirit. I'm not necessarily dealing with a human in many ways. Now, I'm not saying that these people are not human, but I'm just saying that the spirit that's possessed them is not. So this person at their core is a human being that, yes, they may have a soul deep down, but right now it's just buried in filth and it's buried in garbage. And society can be a really evil, dark, dangerous place. In fact, the more I live in life, the more I see God's glory, I also see the more darkness. And it's what Carl Jung says is something along the lines of, no tree can reach to heaven without having roots to hell, something along those lines. And you better believe that hell is a bottomless pit, but so too is the infinitudes and the beatitudes of heavenly things and heavenly qualities. So in the Bible, it also says that to increase in wisdom, you must increase in sorrow as well, as a byproduct. It's not really you have to, but it's what's going to happen. And I do want to share another Bible verse here. It's Proverbs 19:8, and it says, "He that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul, and he that keepeth understanding shall find good." I thought a lot about this, and demonic entities do not keep wisdom. They keep knowledge, but they do not tend to wisdom. They don't really care about wisdom. They care about knowledge for the sake of taking advantage. And that's something that you must be able to scout out in what people are up to and how people are behaving. And you don't need to be paranoid, because I know a lot of the times when we talk about demons or we talk about either gang stalking or whatnot, there's a lot of people that get almost hyper aware of the situation. And even though I would rather you be more alert than not, and I would rather you be, especially as a man, I'd rather you be anxious and angry than cowardly and depressed. I'm not saying that those are the optimal ways of being. I'm not saying that those are the things that you should be looking out for when you're discerning who's who and what's what in your life. But what's most important is to understand what is happening now. What is happening in the situation that either you're in, that you're going to be in, whatever the case may be. Look at the situation and ask yourself, what is going on? What is actually happening? That's going to be the best way to determine any kind of discernment down the line. If you can understand that you can let your pain work for you, then you'll automatically open the gates of wisdom unto your soul. And if you open the gates of wisdom unto your soul, that's where you can keep the understanding of wisdom, and you can keep God close to you at all times. You'll have God's presence with you, the Holy Spirit with you. And you'll know sometimes the Holy Spirit it's like this burning fire of truth within you, where you're walking down the street or out in the community, whatever, and you just happen to sense that when you walk by somebody, they may not seem like anything out of the ordinary or anything like that, but you can feel the energy, the toxicity, or the goodness from this person. And the more you focus on energy as well, maybe you're not the most literate when it comes to trying to discern the behaviors of people or the words that they say. Usually, if you have any kind of emotional intelligence, you're going to be more capable of reading energy. And that's where you're going to want to lean in a little bit more heavily if you're not quite as literate as somebody else, whatever. If you're just not quite as literate and you're more emotionally intelligent, that's where you want to focus and lean in on, is reading energy. If you can read energy and you can read the people's energy all around, then you'll be fine. You don't need to really be the most talkative person or the most articulate person. You just need to know how to read people's energy and their tone of voice or their behavior altogether. Because most people don't recognize these things. Most people are not situationally aware. And demonic spirits are not situationally aware unless they want to take something for their own gain. And it's not even taking as in like like you can like claim what's yours. They're just taking it because they have nothing off to offer. They have nothing to offer. So I hope this message was useful and insightful to you, and peace be with you till next time.